heading to the Schindler's factory today. Also doing the Jewish ghetto tour today. Taking the tram for the first time. It's very cool. Getting down at the next stop. Go this way. So this is the Schindler's factory museum. I think he employed and saved a lot of Jews here. So it looks like there's a long line here. Hello. This is the entrance. So this is Schindler's factory museum where he employed a lot of Jews during the Nazi time and then saved them. Unfortunately, I don't have the tickets for this. Should have been looking at this 2 months before, but at least I got to see the premises and where it is. But maybe for next time I can come back here. These are some of the people who worked here, their faces. Yeah, group of tourists here already have tickets. Well, it is what it is. I was able to get inside, but not taking the tour. Just looking at the layout here. Looks like there is some exhibition about the ghetto, the secretariat, his office. Yeah, so I'm right here. Yeah,
have a look. Those are lockers for you.
would be a cool exhibition to see.
And then let's gather.
We'll see. In recognition of her efforts to save Jews during the Holocaust, March 27, 2017. In the World War II, she rescued 5 people whom she gave shelter in her flat.
Oui. Pode.
Hi. Where are you guys from? Huh?
France, Paris.
Oh, France. Oh, nice. I'm from India. So, yeah. India?
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
My friend is India.
Your friend is Indian? Oh, nice to meet you. Take care. Bye. Here's Oscar Schindler. Some of the books. The museum in Amsterdam. I think Anne Frank's home in Amsterdam, but we'll see if I can get to it. All right. Walking in Krakow neighborhoods. I'm gonna get something to eat and then get to the free walking tour of the Jewish ghetto. Another day, another walking day in Krakow. Just had my Vietnamese lunch. Full, stuffed, so walking it off. Like a nice bridge. Heading to the synagogue, start the walking tour. Weather is nice today. Not that chilly. Comfortable. It's a Krakow boat.
Czemu jeszcze zlepiej? Ogarnęłam.
Więcej dzieci nie widać.
Nie.
Zingamiras, clientes разрешил, Господь gesungen, die ganze Mischpoche. Wenn sie sein Kinder morgen, ой, 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 таза, že wieder niemand glitzende, zakrylich, że Kinder, o, таза, že wieder niemand glitzende, zakrylich, словно alle gehen. Wenn sie seinen Kindern noch geben, oi, 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 oi.
I'm Polish and I've been living here in the city for over 15 years right now. And apart from being the guide, I'm also archaeologist. As archaeologist, I do some projects in university. I do most excavations and projects I do are projects related to Guatemala and Maya culture, but I really like from the past. We will visit during that tour is 18th century city, so-called Podgórze. Podgórze, in the first part of 20th century, started to be the part of Krakow, and later, during the Nazi occupation, Nazi people created their ghetto, this closed area surrounded by the wall, when they placed a lot of Jewish people to control them in the easiest possible way. So we will visit also this part of the past former ghetto. But to start this historical introduction of Jewish community in this part of Poland, we should start it mentioning the third city from the past, that is medieval city of Krakow, and nowadays is area of the old town. Have you been there already, everyone, or do we have someone who still everyone visit, right? Perfect. So I don't know if you remember this university area with Jagiellonian University, the oldest university in Poland, one of the oldest ones in Europe, and where we have a very beautiful building that right now is the Museum of Jagiellonian University, so-called Collegium. Place of Jewish community in this part of Poland. Jewish people came there and established their first place there in the second part of 12th century. Because this time in Europe was the time of many crusades, so persecuted Jewish people started to look for a good place where they could live without any problems. And they came to Krakow, to some other parts of Poland, because Poland and also Lithuania, in this moment of history, were two countries very well known for its religious tolerance. So persecuted Jewish people could find their shelter for over 6 centuries. And the second, bigger wave of Jewish people appeared in medieval city of Krakow in 14th century during the plague, so-called Black Death, for which Jewish people were blamed because they weren't sick as often as other groups of people. And almost everyone in Europe was sure that they started to put some poison into the wells, they knew then where they could drink the water from, where not, and that was the reason, in their opinion, of this situation. Of course, it wasn't the true reason of this situation. The true reason was that Jewish people already in medieval period were very focused on hygiene practices related to religion. If I ask you how many times a year Christians used to wash their bodies in medieval period, what do you think? A year. So tricky question. Twice. Exactly. So here, correct answer here, very close. Twice a year, just twice a year, before the Christmas time and before the Easter. So probably impossible to imagine the smell of medieval city, right? And Jewish people, what do you think? How many times a year? Maybe a month or a week? So you already know that it was more often, right? Every day their hands in this medieval period in the morning before the morning meal, and at least once a week whole body. That is what we can read here about the Jewish community here. So the difference is huge, right? So we already know why they weren't sick as often as other people, talking about the Black Death or other disease. And as whole Europe was sure that Black Death was the fault of Jewish people, they started to be persecuted again. And they started to look for a good place where they could live without any problems again. And they came especially to Krakow, but also to some other smaller parts and cities of Poland, because from Krakow in 14th century governed one king, so-called Kazimierz the Great, who was very well known for his very good attitude. He really liked and appreciated Jewish people because he knew that Jewish people already in medieval period had a huge knowledge about the economy and the finance. So he had a plan to improve economic situation of Poland using abilities of Jewish inhabitants of Krakow. So he invited them to medieval city of Krakow. They went there and they came there, and at the beginning everything was perfect. They flourished there, having a lot of business, so they had also a lot of money. And in one moment they started to lend this money to non-Jewish people from Krakow, and later collected debts, but much higher. And that was the reason why non-Jewish people of Krakow started to organize some kind of riots and protests against this community. So Jewish community had to leave their first place, but they still stayed in medieval city of Krakow, but very close to the boundary. But when they were accused of provoking very big and destructible fire in 1495 in the city of Krakow, they had to leave Krakow and they established their new place here in this bigger northeastern part of Kazimierz. Here they flourished again, especially in 16th and 17th century. And before the Second World War, in whole Krakow, there were over 67,000 Jewish people. That was something like 25% of all inhabitants of the city, so pretty big, very big community, right? But unfortunately, during the Nazi occupation, almost all of them were killed. Only 2,000 of them survived, and when Israel was founded in 1948, most of them decided to move there and they just stayed in Israel. Right now it's hard to say how many Jewish people exactly live in the city, because not every Jew is Orthodox Jewish person, so very focused on the religious practices, rules, because only Orthodox Jewish people are officially registered into the synagogue. So it is said that over 700 Orthodox Jewish people live right now in the city, and over 1,000 non-Orthodox Jewish people, so probably around 2,000 of them live here right now. And seems that it's not that bad place anymore for this community, because, for example, over 4 years ago, they established here in Krakow the kindergarten only for the kids of Orthodox Jewish people, and at the beginning only 3 kids created this kindergarten, and when we checked the numbers, something like maybe 2-3 months ago, there were 13 kids already in this kindergarten. So it seems that every year the community of Jewish people is bigger, so probably in the future it will be bigger too. And right now I would like to ask you to come closer to the map. I will show you some details here. water nowadays. In this, let's say, triangle area here, and here in the southern part of Kazimierz, we have Vistula River. That is the longest, the biggest river in the city. But in medieval period, this river had also its smaller part here. When right now we've got one of the main streets in this part of the city, but the river doesn't exist anymore because it was drier and drier every century. And here, when we've got other very important big streets in this part of Krakow, that was original place of different separate river, so-called Old Vistula River. It doesn't exist anymore, but we can see that Kazimierz in medieval period was surrounded by rivers, by water, right? So it was the city on the island. And here on this island, this aforementioned King Kazimierz the Great founded his city, and he named it Kazimierz. So Kazimierz in Polish is Kazimierz, so very modest king, right? Wanted to commemorate himself forever. And before the arrival of Jewish community here, after this huge fire at the end of the 15th century in Krakow, in this smaller part of the city, Christians already used to live. So Jewish community established their place here in this bigger northeastern part of Kazimierz, and during this tour we will walk mostly in this part of Kazimierz, looking at the most important places related to this community. Later we will cross the Vistula River because ghetto zone is placed in the opposite side of the river. So we will visit this city from 18th century, so-called Podgórze, that is placed here. But right now we are here when this red circle is placed, because behind your back we have very important building. So let's maybe move to our previous place. Here we are right now in front of so-called old synagogue. The synagogue is the place where Jewish people can pray, and the old one because it's the oldest Polish synagogue and one of the oldest ones in whole Europe. The beginnings of constructions are dated to the beginnings of 15th century, and this synagogue is divided into two parts. You can have impression that we've got here two buildings, right? The smaller ones with this triangle roof of cream color, and the bigger one made of red brick. But it's one synagogue divided into two parts because according to the rules of Orthodox Jewish people, women cannot pray in the same space when men do it. So this smaller part of cream color was dedicated to the women to pray, and the bigger one, of course, to the men. It's not the only solution.
Some kind of library.
They are making something on the balcony, but I hope that you can hear me. Your recipes too is known for you, but maybe from the beginning. Because Haya Rubinstein was one of three daughters in this family, and she was the older one. And in the Jewish families, there is a rule that parents can choose the partners to marry their kids. And one day, the father of Haya told her that he found the perfect candidate to marry her. But she was very afraid after looking at him because she was 12 years old girl and he was over 40 years old man. So she really didn't want to marry him, and she created the plan to escape from here. And she was always very, very focused on the topic of the cosmetics. She really took care of her skin. Everyone here in Kazimierz was very jealous about her smooth skin, so she decided to place some creams, some recipes to her suitcase, and she went at the beginning to Australia. But after a few years, she decided that it's hard to run her business in Australia. So she went to United States when she changed her name from Haya to Helena because it sounds more American, and she opened her factory, so-called Helena Rubinstein Cosmetics. Later, she was announced as the richest woman all over the world in 20th century. And before she died, she sold almost all her recipes to L'Oreal. So even if you didn't use or didn't hear about Helena Rubinstein Cosmetics, I'm sure that all of us use L'Oreal or used to use it in some moments in our lives, so we all know her products. Talking about some other famous people that were born here or used to live in Kazimierz, and talking about the same type of the business, cosmetic business. I don't know if Maximilian Faktorowicz sounds familiar if we cut the name and the last name, right? So we have Maximilian Faktorowicz, right? Max Factor then. This man also was born here, and then he went to Russia. But from Russia, he went to. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, perfect. To United States too, when he opened his Max Factor company, and we also all know this man and his products. Talking about some other types of the business and famous people from Kazimierz. Roman Polanski. I don't know if you know the name, the surname of this director. Maybe let's wait a bit. Yeah, I think it's the end of the cruise. Yeah, so Roman Polanski, the director of the movies, he was born here in Kazimierz too. But later, during the Nazi occupation, he was placed in the ghetto zone. And we will talk about it in the ghetto zone, that in ghetto, everyone used to live with something like 50 other people in the house. So everyone had something like 1-2 square meters to live in. And related to this topic about the houses of from ghetto, here we've got one very interesting fact, because some psychologists made analysis of his movies, and they said that it's very easy to notice that at the beginning of his career as a director, he had probably a huge trauma related to this very, very small space he used to live in the ghetto, because every movie from this first period of his career was filmed in one very small room. And then, after a couple of years, he started to create more, let's say, regular movies in whole house, whole building, or whole city. So they said that probably that was the time when he started to have some kind of battle with his trauma. He started to go to some kind of therapy, and he just won this battle in his head, right? And talking about the other people related to the movie business, Warner Bros. Is familiar for everyone, right? Warner Brothers were 3 brothers in this family, and 2 of them were born here in Kazimierz. Then, when mother was pregnant with the 3rd baby, the parents decided to go to United States when the last brother was born, and when they grew up, they decided to create their company, Warner Bros. And we all know at least probably 10 movies of their company, because they are one of the best companies and the biggest ones all over the world. So we could say actually some other things about some other famous people that were born here and used to live here, but maybe we can stop here because we have a lot of other things to talk about during the tour. There are some books for writing also related to the history, culture of Poland or some other countries. Yesterday I visited this bookshop, so I saw that there is something related to Japan, for example, and other parts of the world. And I think if you like books or this kind of the souvenirs, let's name it this way, it can be a perfect souvenir, perfect gift for someone who loves books. These books for writing that are sold in Popper Synagogue. Okay, and you can come closer, because usually these small vehicles like Melex are crossing this street, so you can come closer, because right now we are in front of a very important monument that commemorates 65,000 Jewish people that were killed in Krakow during the Nazi occupation. And this monument has a form of the stone, which is connection with the stones that are placed in the surroundings and on the surface of each tombstone inside each Jewish cemetery. And this tradition related to the stones has a few explanations, and each one is confirmed by Jewish community. This tradition comes from the ancient times where Jewish people used to bury deceased on desert, and to show the huge respect and not allow wild animals eat the bodies, they started to cover them using the stones, much bigger than these ones here. So in the surroundings and on the surface of each body, they started to put stones. You can read about the beginnings of this tradition. For example, in this part of Old Testament, when they say about this very long journey through a desert. But there are also some other explanations of this tradition. Jewish community says that it's a very beautiful and symbolical way of communication between two worlds, world of deceased and world of still alive. Because every time we put a stone on a tombstone, there is a sound, right? So a person or people inside the grave always can hear when somebody is visiting them and are making, for example, some celebrations in front of the graves. But there is also the other, more, let's say, practical explanation. Jewish people say that they prefer to commemorate deceased using something what is eternal and also indestructible. Because, for example, a candle, a flower, after a week, right, is completely broken, useless. But stone can stay much longer, sometimes even forever. Although here we can see and some candles and some flowers. Talking about the candles, in some specific religious days in Jewish religious calendar, there are some celebrations during which Jewish people also use the candles, like long candles. So here we've got example of this, but sometimes we have also opportunity to see here very traditional Christian candle, and these flowers are here too because as it's the monument that commemorates the victims of Holocaust, Christian people also very often come here to commemorate them. So usually here we can see this mix of elements and traditions. And talking about the graves, we can go closer to this building that we've got right there, because that's the synagogue that is still in use, and behind its walls we have very important cemetery full of the graves of very important Jewish leaders, rabbis, also people related to very important other institutions here between 16th century and the end of the 19th century. So here in the parking we've got good spots maybe to stop. So let's start with this. Text, so everyone who is related to local yeshiva is very, very important in the local community of Jewish people. And Father Avremu founded this synagogue to his son. So it's small private synagogue and you can visit it, but not during Shabbat. Today we have Tuesday. Okay, Shabbat is very important religious day repeated every week. It lasts between twilight of Friday and twilight of Saturday, and it's day full of religious adoration. It's also day full of the meetings with other members of a community. What is interesting, for example, Orthodox Jewish people cannot work during Shabbat. Not only talking about going, for example, to the shop or to the school if they are the teachers, but you cannot do anything like cleaning the house, cooking. This kind of work is prohibited during Shabbat too, and it's prohibited to make any other celebration, party, any celebration that is not related to Shabbat. So during Shabbat, every synagogue that is in use is dedicated to the members of a Jewish community. But as we have today, Tuesday, so after the tour it will be closed. But today, for example, if you stay in Krakow, I would really recommend you to visit this synagogue. If you have the plan of to visit one synagogue being in Krakow, I would recommend you this one. The first reason why is that it's still in use. So you can see some Jewish people reading or praying in Hebrew, what is very beautiful and also different experience that we usually can see in Krakow. The other reason is the history of this building, because during the Nazi occupation, Nazi people created inside their military base. So they destroyed everything that was related to the religion, culture of Jewish community, and looking at the walls, empty walls, and knowing why it looks like this, you have completely different impression that in other buildings of synagogues here. And talking about the Nazi, please be careful. I'm really thrilling. Yes, yeah, okay. We should say that Jewish people knew that arrival of the Nazi means total destruction of every element that was related to their history, culture, and religion. And behind this wall, we've got right there, we have this aforementioned cemetery, so-called Remu cemetery, full of the graves of very important people from Jewish community that used to live here between 16th century and the end of the 19th century. And it is said that Jewish people from here decided to save at least one part of this cemetery full of the graves of the most important people, but they didn't have a lot of time to create more elaborated plan. So they decided to cover this part of cemetery using a lot of ground and sand to make this impression that is nothing important there, just plain area. And after that, when they did it, Nazi people entering there, they believed so, that it's just a plain area without any significance. And they started to use it as their trash place. So they didn't excavate anything. And after the war, it is said that Jewish people from Krakow started to excavate this part of cemetery, and they found over 700 tombstones, some of them entire ones in a very good state of preservation, and right now they are inside this cemetery in the rows that you can also visit, and it's also highly recommended. And a lot of them were fragmented ones, and these fragmented ones they placed on the surface of this wall, making something what Jewish people named the Polish Wall of Tears. So here we have this connection with the Wall of Tears in Jerusalem, one of the most important places for the Jewish people from all around the world. And it is also said that this wall is oriented to Jerusalem, that Jerusalem is oriented like there, what makes this wall even more special and more symbolical here in the city. On our side, these tombstones are not so well preserved. They are not, these inscriptions in Hebrew, these decorations are not so beautiful, but in the opposite side of the wall you have something like 20 meters of beautiful tombstones written in Hebrew with a lot of beautiful decorations, very well preserved. That's also the other reason why I recommend you to visit this synagogue, because buying the ticket to the synagogue you can also visit the cemetery, and being in front of this wall but from the other side, it's one of the most beautiful impressions you can have, in my opinion, at least here in Kazimierz. So if I remember correctly, the ticket costs 15 zlotys for one person. Usually we don't know anything about that. But Jan Karski was the person who entered ghetto in Warsaw twice as the prisoner, using some tricks, and then he escaped. Why did he do something like this? He really wanted to make very detailed documentation about the situation in that ghetto and later show it to some people of power to stop Holocaust. So he had his hidden camera with himself and he took a lot of pictures. And when he decided during his second stay that it's detailed enough, he escaped and he went to England, because he knew that in this moment of the history in Poland there was no one of power who would help him with this plan, So Jan Karski went to England to talk to Churchill, but Churchill unfortunately refused to see him, saying that he has nothing important or interesting to show or tell him, probably, so he just sent him away. So Jan Karski went to United States to talk to Roosevelt. But Roosevelt, looking at the picture, said something like this, that it must be Polish propaganda because it's impossible that something like this is happening in Europe in 20th century. Because he was looking at the pictures where a lot of people were lying on the floor with a lot of bullets in their heads, for example, or dying of hunger with ribs and other bones visible only. So he said, no way, it cannot be true. So Jan Karski, as the worker of embassy, so that's why he had a lot of contacts in other countries, really tried to find someone who could believe him that all this was the true story. But unfortunately, no one wanted to believe him. So everybody noticed that every picture, every story was the true story, but after the Holocaust, when it was too late to do anything. If you are interested in the situations Jan Karski had seen in this ghetto, on YouTube you can find a lot of interviews with him. He died 24, almost 5 years ago, so these kind of interviews maybe weren't very popular, but started to be, right? It's really recommended to watch at least 1-2 of them to have this very, very wide perspective on the situation not only in the ghetto, not only in Warsaw, but in whole country during that time. It's also very, very touching looking at emotions of this man. Because he was between 70, 80 years old man during his interviews, but he was still so full of very hard feelings, emotions, that in some moments he had to stop the interview, for example, because he started to cry. He had to leave because he couldn't talk about all this again. So it's really, really touching looking at the man after so long, right? As it was yesterday. So if you want to guard his name, because Polish names, surnames sometimes are very difficult to remember, although his one is probably one of the easiest ones, but I think the best idea, the best thing to do it to guard his name is to take the picture of it, because on the wall we have this board of, let's say, green color, and over there you have some information about him and his name written, or at the end of the tour we can also look on your mobiles how you are writing it down to be sure that everything is written in the correct way. On YouTube and in some other places on the internet you can also find a lot of documental movies about his life. His life was very hard, but from this historical perspective, also very interesting. So if somebody is interested in this part of history, it's highly recommended to remember his name and find something more to watch something about his life. And from this spot, maybe to change a little bit the atmosphere of the tour, I would like to recommend you 2 places with very good food and drinks, because we are very close to this big building right there. This building, till the times before the Second World War, was the building of the most important Jewish leaders here. But then it started, well, on the ground floor right now we have Hamza, and it's the restaurant with food from Israel. Not only like traditional Jewish food, but from Israel in general, very good one. Every time I've been there, I was really, really happy about food. The atmosphere, very nice. And after the food in Hamza, I would recommend you, maybe even more, to go upstairs to the first floor when we have something what is called sababa, cocktails and more. Maybe you can confirm that sababa in Hebrew means something really cool and awesome, right? And this place is really cool and awesome. It's a very mysterious dark place. We can see that it's dark inside, but it's already open. Oh, there is at least one lamp on the left side. But usually very dark, mysterious place, full of beautiful but rare decorations in the same moment, and the cocktails, alcoholic, non-alcoholic ones, very, very good ones. I think it's one of my favorite, if not my favorite, like #1 among the bars, cocktail places in the whole city. So I really can recommend you these places from my heart. You can remember Hamza and Sabala. And okay, do you have here some questions maybe?
Is he naturally a big man, or is he?
Yes, he was very tall.
That was him.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
wow.
He was very tall, very thin. So yes, we can notice here, right?
You said on the cemetery everything was destroyed by Nazis. But I visited it and it's a lot of stones with all signs on them.
Right. Inside the synagogue, everything was destroyed, but in the cemetery, like one part was covered by this ground, by Jewish people, and the other part, as it wasn't the part full of like the graves of the most important people, so this part of the cemetery was covered, and all, but the rest wasn't destroyed. Like some parts, it wasn't like 100% of the places were destroyed, but the most important, some inscriptions, but they are not well preserved and they are cut also, right? But sometimes when I have people from Israel in the group or people who can read Hebrew, I ask them if they can read something, and it was confirmed a couple of times actually. Maybe you can confirm too that here Abraham is mentioned. Can you see it also? Yeah. So it seems that then it's right that here it's hard to say to read all this, but here we've got the other confirmation that here Abraham.
These Abrahamic is Abrahamic.
Yeah.
This way, but others
Yeah,
it's hard to recognize.
It's Hebrew letters, but
it's
very
impossible to say, right? What is written. One two girls once told me that, but I don't remember the place of it, that maybe they can see two names and surnames of not known people. So maybe we thought that maybe these tombstones were related to the graves of these people, or maybe these girls don't know
they
these
probably
people.
were tombs
Of-
stones.
Mhm.
Yes.
So
But,
not people from the like. But we have Abraham here confirmed again. Yes. So important. Oh, exactly. Very very. Once someone told me that here probably is the verb like to do something like in this. Of,
say, maybe it's a
Yeah.
say, maybe
It's a cemetery wall.
okay. So here we've got like two possibilities.
Yes.
Tombstones
But
within the
here
wall.
we can see that, yeah, it's not easy to read all this. In the other side, yeah, like, yeah. Because this, yeah, here and also inside this building, the Jewish people are the owners. So usually they have like the names in Hebrew. So here we can see how the buildings of the Jewish people, talking about the ground floor, of course, look like before the Second World War here. The upper part is already renovated, but Jewish people here, before the war, till the times before the war, used to live in the buildings on one floor. On the first floor, they had their apartments, and on the ground floor, they had their shops, workshops, and business in general. And here, when we have these boards, with the names of the business and the names of the owners of the business, these parts are original ones from that time. Also, all these wooden doors and windows are original from this Jewish business from the times before the war. And right now, inside there is a restaurant and a beer place, and although it's one place inside, it's divided into 3 parts. And in every part inside, you can find original things like decorations related to every business that is mentioned here. So, for example, this part here, that was the workshop of the tailor. So we can see we have some sewing machines, some mirrors, and other elements related to this business. Here, the carpenter had his workshop, and we have a lot of furniture, some things they used to create all these furnitures. And the third part, that was the grocery. So we can see the bottles, the cans, and other things related to the shop. things they used to use in this business. Earlier, also Jewish people were the workers, the bartenders, so it was usually closed during Shabbat, but right now they have other business, other workers, so it's open every day, every night, so you can come back here any moment of your visit. You can, of course, yes, we can see some people inside, so you can cross the street to see how it looks inside. And I think you want to come back here or now. A very nice atmosphere inside, a very yeah, oh, there is. Yeah. Careful here, so we can cross here. I don't know if you prefer sunny or
Nie wiem, ale generalnie no chyba działa tak, że
one of my closest friends has been here well, and she told me that probably it would be a little bit problematic if hopefully one day. When you like people, when you like history, it's a perfect job actually. That's good. You can consider it not a job. Again, I have to it is very complicated. I remember the first class in university when we started doing it, and our professor, so I still can do it, but well, yeah, it's anyway hard to survive. The only archaeology. It's like I'm really fine doing it. Very nice because every time I come to you, like, that's then I think that yeah, I've never considered this right? So like later I have to read a lot to know something new. So it's very here I've got some spots to recommend you. Okay. So right now we are in the center, in the heart of the Jewish quarter. This square is called the New Square, Plac Nowy in Polish, and it's surrounded by a lot of good restaurants, bars, and coffee places. I would like to show you two coffee places, bars that you should visit being in the city, because they are very famous, very nice places. The first one, maybe it will be better, easier to start with this one here, in the corner, in this very tall, destroyed yellowish building. We have something behind the still. We have Alchemia. Alchemia is one of the oldest bars in the city. They have very good beer, and I don't know why, probably it's confirmation that their beer is very good, because English people really like good beer of good quality, and it's usually full of English people, so it can be a good recommendation. A very nice atmosphere in general, and also very yeah, you just should go there to feel it. And the second cocktail bar or coffee place, something like this, is placed in the opposite side of this street, where you have something what is called Singer. Maybe you've heard about it. Singer was the American tailor, and he was the founder of Singer Sewing Machines Company. It was like the modern sewing machine, very well developed, and this coffee place is organized in this way to pretend the tailor's workshop. It's beautiful. It has a lot of tables with sewing machines. Inside, outside, beautiful furniture inside with a lot of mirrors and other things like this. One of the most beautiful places and bars, coffee places in the Jewish quarter and the city. So you can remember Singer. It is like a person who sings, right? So you can remember it in the opposite side of the street. But here we can also see that this square is full of some kind of like the sellers who sell, for example, some ancient, let's say, things, because it's the flea market usually here. But we can see also some modern souvenirs, some clothes. Everything can be found here. So if somebody wants to buy some kind of souvenirs related, for example, to the past, it's a very good place to look around. And the other thing I would like to recommend from this spot is the food that is sold there in this rounded building made of red brick. And some kids are eating their zapiekanka. Zapiekanka is long baguette, is like the half of it, and it's warm. And the base is always cheese and mushrooms, and you can choose your version with a lot of other things, like for example vegetables, fruits, meats, sauce, other kind of cheese. And it's very traditional Polish fast food that comes from the times of very strong Soviet influence, because in that time economic situation of Polish people wasn't very good. So almost no one could travel abroad, but some people already started to do it. And when they came back, they started to talk about good things they tried abroad. And especially Italian pizza made this impression, like, wow, that we have to try pizza. But as they couldn't go to Italy, they decided to create their own Polish version of pizza, and they created zapiekanka. So we have also some jokes that it's poor version of pizza, small version of pizza, but although we have some similar elements, it's completely different food. We can cross the...
Zapiekanka is the Polish version of pizza. They have different kinds of pizza here. Oh, they have the Italian one. Nutcracker, vegetarian, spinach, salami, roasted onion, Polish pizza. That looks good.
Thank you.
Very good. What
Go
is
Huskies.
Go Huskies?
Yeah.
No, I was talking about the zapiekanka.
Oh.
But go Huskies too.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's really good.
Good, can I just...
You're from Connecticut, New York?
New York.
Here we've
good.
got photo time. And this building in general, it was always connected with food, because till the times before the Second World War, it was used to prepare meat in the so-called kosher way. Because Jewish people have their special rules to kill, for example, animals. Killing the animal in the kosher way means to kill them using only one, maximum two cuts of their neck. And they used to do it inside this building till the times before the war. Right then it was abandoned, and right now it's related to the zapiekankas. And as one person went to the toilet, I will stay here to not make this impression that we disappeared, okay? But you can enter, as the lady said, you can go around. There are some pictures, very good moments then to see it. And I will be waiting here for you, okay? Inside you can see
20 do 40. Ale ja miał 20 ale nie widać tego. Wygląda jak wszystkie
So maybe let's go this way. So talking about the food, I can recommend you if you want to know some kind of traditional Polish cuisine. Very easy to remember the name of the restaurant, Polish restaurant. And here you can find everything that is the most traditional for Polish cuisine. Highly recommended. So you can remember maybe one day you would like to come here. So let's go this way. We are very close to the place from the steam. Today the day is much better, right?
Yeah, it is
It's
much better.
beautiful day with the sun.
Yeah.
I'm really glad. Here we can also waiting for the other group that is leaving.
Okay.
I can also recommend you one where you can find a lot of wonderful places where you can eat and drink something delicious. And for example, here in the corner we have this cream yellowish building with this cafe in the circle. Can you see it? So it is called Hevre. And this building is this coffee place, this bar, is inside the building of the synagogue. The past synagogue. It's very beautiful. The painting on the walls, the ceiling are wonderful. So I would also recommend you to drink something, for example, after the tour or in the other moment. It's one of the most recommended places actually in the Jewish quarter to rest and drink something. But right now we can. Oh, there is a big group, but I think they are leaving, so we can enter.
Right.
Full of the big shops, like a lot of malls. We can stop there, maybe in front of these stairs that are the most famous stairs in the city. 2 days ago, this space was like empty, but right now they prepared this garden. There is no other group, so we are lucky ones. Because here there is also some kind of small boxes between the groups to see and talk about this place being here. So can someone recognize maybe these stairs or this gate? We were entering here. No. Yes, can you? It's something the other one. So let's refresh the memory. But probably you have watched that movie a long time ago, right? So this scene from this place was the scene that is talking about the liquidation of the ghetto. But a very important thing here is that we are still not in the ghetto. We are in the Jewish quarter. That is other different zone of the city. So why did Steven Spielberg, because he's the director of the movie, decide to make the scene from the ghetto in the Jewish quarter? The thing is that when he came to Krakow in 1993, he went, of course, to the zone of the ghetto, but was very disappointed. Because after the war, ghetto zone was almost completely renovated because no one wanted to live in the buildings where so many people were killed. So, officials of the city, in one moment, decided to destroy almost all of the original buildings from that time, and they created the new ones. So he couldn't find anything that was very authentic. Right? Very, very realistic in this zone of the ghetto. So someone told him to come to the Jewish quarter because this area wasn't renovated at all after the war. war. So he started to walk in the Jewish quarter, and when he entered here, he found what he was looking for. As we mentioned, the Jewish people in that time, before the war, used to live in the buildings of one floor mostly. And here we've got their apartments were on the first floor, and when behind your back, or right now in front of you, we have on the ground floor these wooden doors and the windows. That was the place of the Jewish business. So he decided to make the scene from the ghetto here to make it more realistic. And here we should say that this day, this action of the liquidation of the ghetto, for a community of Jewish people from here, probably was one of the worst days ever, because Nazi people decided to make this liquidation, but no one from the Jews knew why and where they are going to be taken. So a lot of them decided in that moment escape. And about such situation, is this still related to the stairs? In the scene, next to the stairs, we can see the boy, Polish small boy, that was the collaborator of the Nazis. Because we should remember that in the case of every conflict, there is always this part of society that really wants to help the persecuted part of the conflict, but there is always this part too that refers to collaborate with occupants to improve their situation. And this boy was like this. He had a whistle, and he had to whistle every time he noticed some Jewish people escaping to warn the Nazi about this situation. And in one moment, in the scene, we can see a woman on the stairs. So this boy noticed her whistle, but in this moment he realized that she was the mother of his friend from the school. So he changed his mind. He told her about this space behind the stairs to hide here. She did it, and in this moment, two Nazi soldiers started to come closer from the gate we entered here too, to see what is going on here. But the boy said something like this, that of course I didn't see anyone, it was just a mistake, so they just left. And in this moment, on the stairs appears a very young girl, the friend from the school of the boy, and boy says words like this: "Now I will show you a good line." What does it mean? During this liquidation, this action of the liquidation of the ghetto, in Krakow there were 3 lines to 3 trains, and each train used to take people to other places. The first one to Krakow labor camp, that is not that far away from here in Krakow, and actually it was the first labor camp in general in territories of Poland made by Nazi people. The other train to death camp in Auschwitz, and the last one directly to the gas chambers. But no one from the Jews knew which one goes to which place. But at least some collaborators of the Nazi knew that. And this boy, knowing all this, decided to save, or at least try to save, his friend and her mother, because everyone from Krakow knew that from Krakow labor camp, Oskar Schindler could take Jewish people and save them. Who was Oskar Schindler then? Oskar Schindler was the German businessman and also the member of the Nazi party. But he was very, very focused on his business. And when he noticed that so many people from Germany came to Poland, he realized that Polish workers are much cheaper than the German ones. So he decided to come here, open his factory, and making better deals and better money in Poland. But when he came here, he realized that the Jewish workers are even cheaper than the Polish ones, because Nazis didn't pay them at all. And he decided to do the same thing. So he started to hire Jewish people in his factory. He started to use their abilities, but after a while, especially because his personal reasons, because of some political reasons too, and some situations he had seen in the city, he changed his mind and he decided to save as many Jewish people from here as it was possible. So he spent all his money to take around 1,200 Jews to Austria when he had his business partners, his collaborators, and he knew that in Austria, situation for the Jewish people is much better than here in Poland. So he took all of them there, and leaving them there, he saved them in this way. And although Oskar Schindler wasn't very crystal person, there are a lot of controversial facts, situations related to this person, to his motives, because he didn't decide to save all these people because of his need of the heart. That was, as we mentioned, political and some personal businesses. here. But anyway, Jewish people from here said that apart from these motives of Oskar Schindler, he saved a lot of members from their community. So they decided anyway to say thank you very much in very symbolical way to Oskar Schindler, giving him the golden ring with inscription from one sacred text that says, "Whoever saves one life saves entire world." And it was this symbolical way to say that they appreciate what he had done to them. And also, the community from Israel after the war started to give one very symbolical title, righteous among the nations, to every non-Jewish person who helped Jews a lot during occupation. And it was the most beautiful, the most symbolical way to say thank you very much. And Oskar Schindler also received this title. So although very controversial person, also very important, talking about the history of the Jewish community from here, especially. So if somebody still hasn't watched the movie, it's highly, highly recommended. You should be prepared that, because it's not easy to watch it, right? It's full of very cruel, drastic scenes. You should be also prepared with your time because it lasts over 3 hours. So maybe it's not the best idea for this evening, right? But if you want to refresh your memory or see this scene for the first time in your life on YouTube, they have everything. You can write down "Liquidation of the Ghetto," Schindler's List movie, and there you can see this scene we were talking about that lasts something like 6 minutes and 2 seconds. So this thing you can do today to have this wider perspective to watch this scene. Talking about the movie and the situation in the ghetto, I would like to ask you also to come closer to especially one of these posters we have on the wall. Here, the lower part of each poster is in English. So after, for example, the tour or in the other moment, you can come back here reading all this. You can also take the pictures to have this information in your cameras. But I would like to show you this man especially, because we will talk about him being in the ghetto zone. His name was Tadeusz Pankiewicz, and he was the pharmacist. We will stand in front of the original building of his pharmacy because it's there, still there. It remained in original form, and he was the only non-Jewish person that had permission to live in the ghetto zone. So he helped the inhabitants of the ghetto a lot. So you can remember the face and imagine it while talking about Tadeusz Pankiewicz. You can also see the scenes. 1 minute and we will, yeah, we can maybe. Do you want to leave?
Yeah.
Okay, so if we can make the path.
Thank you.
Yes, exactly, with the chair, exactly. Exactly. So we will be there already, yeah? So we will be there as well. So in the movie, you can also see some scenes with the pharmacist. He's not one of the main characters in the movie, but when you see the head and you see the pharmacist, that's the one we will talk about. So you can remember, there are like 3 or 4 scenes maybe with Tadeusz Pankiewicz. He's also the person who wrote the book. We already mentioned talking about the Poker Synagogue, the bookshop, but later we will talk about him more. So do you have some questions? Of the pharmacy, of his pharmacy. We will make it very close to the place where
Still walking in the Jewish quarter, checking out all the spots, learning about the history, the Nazi occupation. Now we are walking towards the ghetto area where all the Jewish people were. Were they pushed from the quarter to the ghetto area?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. And they had disease and they were living in small spaces. So, yeah, very dark history.
Very good ice cream. Czech restaurant.
No.
Like Czech beer is very good, very recommended, right? I'm not a fan of beer, but everyone says that Czech beer is one of the best ones in Europe.
I'm a fan of
So
vodka. No.
Yeah. So what? Yeah. Which flavor did you?
I had cherry, strawberry, lime.
Okay.
So different
Like,
kinds.
yeah.
Yeah.
Did you eat something before? No. Because
Yeah.
it's strong, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's recommended usually to eat something before
Yeah.
to know the wine very, very fast.
Good experience.
It's strong but sweet, right? Because
Yeah.
of this flavor. So.
Yeah.
And cherry?
Cherry too.
Too.
Yeah.
Because it's one of the most
Ruda.
traditional.
Ruda. There was something called Ruda. It was all like, it's called redhead. I don't know, maybe
Maybe I don't know this.
or ginger and something.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
yes.
good.
Yes. Exactly. Maybe it's like the name.
Yeah.
With the no. Oh yeah, here we can feel that we are closer to the river because
Yeah.
of the wind. It's refreshing. We are in front of the Vistula River. We saw on the map. We will cross it using this, the most famous Krakowian bridge. That is the bridge of people in love. Please notice two things on it. The first one, talking about the love, are locks that can be found in the central part on the left side of our. Makes this impression that they are very nice here, right? Because they actually stop. It's not the need of their heart, it's like the law. Because over 1 year ago, the government established a new rule that all the drivers have to stop every time they see some people crossing the street in a zebra cross. But they still, not everyone is used to, so yeah.
Like a real person there.
Sorry?
It's like a real person almost.
Yep. Yeah. And please remember, for example, if you will be here again in the other, for example, coming back from the tour or in the other moment, this part is for the people, the other one for the bicycles, okay? So use this part because, yeah, there sometimes some crazy situations happen with the speed. And here we have some logs. Not so many, I will explain you why.
Not like Paris.
Sorry?
Not like Paris, you know.
Yeah.
Or Amsterdam.
It's like right now there are a lot of jokes related to it. Right now we have something crazy.
This side is the Jewish ghetto.
Altogether, yes. So we saw these logs in the central part of the bridge, right? There are not so many logs right now. Something like 5-6 months ago, this bridge was full of the logs, like in Paris or some other places, especially like every European country has at least one bridge in the biggest city like this, full of bricks. Sorry? In Prague as well, yes, exactly. So here it was the same situation, but it started to be too heavy. So the officials decided 5-6 months ago to remove all of them. So right now we have a lot of jokes that the era of divorces had come to Krakow, right? But although the officials even changed the fence and they made it in this way, and everything is bigger to make it impossible to place the new logs, Polish people, as we say here, that Polish people can always find solution in problematic situation. So they started to use the chains and they placed the new locks on the chains, right? So probably in a couple of years the situation will be the same and everything will be removed. But the most important thing related to the bridge are the figures up there. Artists wanted to show here that art can be placed everywhere, even in the air, so that's why he made something like this, but he didn't say his interpretation of it. So inhabitants of Krakow made their own interpretations. One of the most famous ones says that it's about the balance in our lives, because we can notice that in the windy moments or when we are close to the figures, they are moving, right? So according to this, in the Pod Górze, but we are still not inside the ghetto, but we are very, very close, because when we have this cream orange building and this mint building over there, that was the beginning of the ghetto. So right now we can go down. Ghetto wasn't very like regular, it hadn't got very regular shape, so it started there. Then we will walk through the street where the wall was continued, so I will explain you everything related to the border. So let's go down and of the city at the beginning of 20th century, because in Poland, bigger cities, the heads of bigger cities are called presidents. So he was one of the head of the city, like the mayor or something. Yes, exactly. But here it's like the title for the mayors are like president. The cities that are bigger than 700,000 inhabitants have president. The president developed the city in a very nice way. In the times of the existence of the ghetto, this building was the employment office, because this building is like the first original building from this side of in this area of the ghetto. So here we can start. We are inside the ghetto, and we can start with this fact that this ghetto wasn't officially established after the arrival of the Nazi to Krakow. Nazi people entered Krakow exactly on the 6th of September 1939, but this ghetto was established almost 1 year and a half after their arrival, exactly on the 3rd of March 1941. But from the beginnings, Nazi people started to control Jewish people. They started to limit their rights in the city. They made everyone over 14 years old to work, and they also started to think, to create some plans how to make a displacement of the Jewish people from here, to make some kind of free city, free from of the Jews. And in 1914, because as we mentioned, in Krakow there were in general before the war over 67,000 Jewish people. And in 1940, Hans Frank, the right hand of Hitler, so-called general governor, who was announced by himself as the king of Poland, he decided to make a huge displacement of the Jewish people from Krakow. He sent over 50,000 Jewish people to the camps. to the labor and death camps, and only 16,000 Jews in this moment stayed in the city. And at the beginnings of 1941, Nazi people decided to create ghetto in this part of the city to remove all these people, all these around 16,000 Jews to this zone. At the beginning, ghetto zone wasn't closed by the wall. This area had only 2.2 square kilometers and only 320 houses where people could use as their houses. So all these numbers here can tell us that in every building, that usually was a building between 50-70 square meters, up to 50 people used to live. So as we mentioned, talking about Roman Polanski, everyone had something like 1-2 square meters only for themselves. In some cases of some buildings, Nazi people started to cover the windows using the bricks. So some people used to live over 2 years because the liquidation we already talked about a little bit was done exactly on the 13th of March 1943. So this zone of the ghetto existed 2 entire years and 10 days exactly. So they used to live in 1-2 square meters and without sunlight for all this time. Probably even impossible.
I could understand maybe. This place, before it became a ghetto, what was it?
It was just the part of the city. It was just a regular part of the
With
city.
no Jews on it.
There were some,
But most of them
there, but as there were like over 67,000 Jewish people, it was impossible to live for all of them, right, in the Jewish quarter. So they were like spread in whole city. So of course, after the establishment of this ghetto, Nazi people removed non-Jewish people from here too, right? So to make this area free and empty, to place here, not the best place probably, ghetto zone here then. The thing is that they decided to separate Jewish people from the rest of the city. And as here we've got the opposite side of the river, they thought that it's like the good natural boundary, right, between these two cities. They also destroyed like 2 small, the closest bridges close to the zone of the ghetto to make it impossible to escape or to have any contact between these 2 parts of the city. Here, I would like to show you the picture of the wall, because in 1941, after a couple of months, Nazi people forced Jewish people to create the wall in the surroundings of this zone. Police noticed 2 things in the picture. The first one is the form of the wall. This form, I will give it to you to see it from the shorter distance. And the second one are people working on the wall. So please take it and give it to the rest of the members of the group, please. So this form of the wall, we will see it also at the end of the tour, because we will see one fragment of the wall. It's very, very similar to the form of the tombstones of Jewish graves. In every Jewish cemetery we have a lot of tombstones like this. Nazi people, in a very cynic way, said that they really want to make it beautiful for the Jewish people. That's why the form is like this. But they just wanted to make it to make people remember about death every time they were in front of the wall. And the second thing, people working there are Jewish people first to create this wall, and because we've got them in the picture, we can see the height of the wall. We can see that it wasn't very, very tall wall, right? In the tallest points, it had only 3 meters. So it wasn't that hard to jump over with help or without any help, right? But even if it wasn't so hard, almost no one wanted to cross this boundary without special permission, because since November 1941, Nazi people established the death penalty to everyone who wanted to cross it without this permission. But this part of the penalty wasn't the worst part of it. The worst part was that this person was taken to the house where he used to live and had to watch how Nazi kill everyone who used to live with this person in the house. So no one wanted to be responsible for the death of sometimes 50 people, and among these people were their parents, their kids, and other close people. This ghetto was organized in this way to pretend, at least in opinion of the Nazi, to pretend the regular Polish city. They always repeated that life within the ghetto is like the life in every other Polish city, because people inside the ghetto can exist, they can work, they can visit some other people in other buildings in some parts of the day, and they can do the shopping. But of course it wasn't like the life in every other city, because for example, every basic element, article to survive, like food, like medicine, like hygiene articles, were very limited to the inhabitants of the ghetto. Jewish people had no right to have anything related to religion. So we know that for Orthodox Jewish people, religion is so important. They couldn't celebrate any Shabbat, any other important religious day. And this ghetto, before the liquidation, was divided into two parts. There was so-called A zone of the ghetto, where people able to work used to live, and B zone of the ghetto, we are right now in this zone, where people not able to work used to live. So most of these people were the older people, kids, and weaker women, and some disabled people too. And if somebody was placed in this B zone of the ghetto, that was the worst sign ever, because it meant that these people will be killed probably very soon, because in opinion of the Nazi, people not able to work had no right to live, because they were completely useless in their plans and their business. Here talking a little bit more, because we already mentioned something about the liquidation of the ghetto. This day, as we mentioned, was probably the worst day for this community from here. Amon Get was the person responsible to make this liquidation. He was the commandant of Plaszów labor camp, and exactly on the 13th of March 1943, he decided to make this liquidation. He also divided it into two parts. The first day of liquidation was dedicated to take everyone from A zone of the ghetto to Plaszów labor camp, to use these people in the camp. And the next day was dedicated to make total selection in the B zone of the ghetto. So Nazi people entered everywhere. They entered every house. They entered the hospital of the ghetto. That was this pinkish building on the left side. They entered the orphan's house and they killed everyone. Over 2,000 people were lying on the streets inside the buildings and some gates, and seems that the worst thing was related to the kids and babies. Because in opinion of the Nazi, bullets were things of so huge value that they decided not to lose them, killing these people that cannot escape, to have them more in such situations where some Jewish people were escaping. So to kill the youngest, the smallest inhabitants of the ghetto, they decided to do it throwing them at the walls and smashing their bodies in this way, for example, or throwing them out of the windows. Sometimes when they had a lot of bullets, like a lot of them, they made a line of a few babies and they used only one bullet to kill them all at once. So here we can see that this cruelty was beyond any scale. But talking about the kids, we can say also that a lot of people from Krakow actually really tried to help them. It was also the easiest way to help anyone from the ghetto. As kids are smaller, it's easier to find some ways to take them out of this ghetto, of some places, or hide them in some shelters. And talking about the kids and liquidation of the ghetto, I can tell you one story, one action very well prepared, because inside the ghetto there were two tram lines. These trams only crossed the zone of the ghetto. There was no stop inside it. And each train was divided into two parts. The first part was dedicated to the Nazi people, and the second one to the Polish people from Krakow. Jewish people had no right to enter the tram. And some people from Krakow had information, like secret information about these plans of liquidation, and they said that this day and this hour, very early in the morning, they will be in this Polish part of tram, and if somebody wants to save their kids, can take them to one very invisible point of this tram line and give all these babies through the windows, and these people who have some family members or some other people they could trust to in other cities or sometimes other countries can take them there, and leaving them there they will save them in this way. So people from B zone of the ghetto, because here the risk of being killed was higher, decided to make very well organized action. They decided to give the sleeping pill to every baby and very small kid to be sure that no one will be crying during the action, and they placed these kids into the suitcases. And later, with these suitcases full of babies, they went to this invisible point of the tram line and gave all of them to the Polish inhabitants of Krakow, and all these babies were saved during this action in this way. We have also some information about some couples from Krakow that, for example, these couples lost their babies or kids that small that still hadn't got a lot of characteristic features on the faces, so they decided to make the secret funeral of these kids, and later they took the kids of similar age from the suitcase, and they started to pretend that it's the same baby since this moment. So here we can see that actually a lot of people really tried to help the inhabitants of the ghetto, but of course not everyone. Of course, some people had their personal reasons. Other people, anti-Semitism was also present here. Some people were very, very afraid of the Nazi people, because if somebody helped the Jews, it meant that this person started to be the big enemy of the Nazi people, and these kind of people also were killed very, very soon. Sometimes, even if somebody had nothing in common with some organized actions to help the Jewish community, these people also could be killed, because Nazi people very often organized some kind of actions to show the societies, the cities, that they are the people of power, and actually they can do whatever they want to do. For example, probably in every Polish family there is at least one story like this. I also know one story like this from my family. I have no official information that my grandmother helped in official way the Jewish community from her city. This city is located something like 40 kilometers from here. I was born there too. It is called Olkusz, and there also pretty big Jewish community used to live in that time. So Nazi people also stayed there. And my grandmother, from my mother's side, one day decided to leave her house because she had to do some shopping. And when she entered the main square of this city, two Nazi soldiers appeared on the square, and they said that right now everybody who is present on the square has to play the game. They named it in this way. Nobody understood what is going on, and they made people to create huge circle of the people on the square. And they told them to count from 1 to 10. Nobody understood. But when first person with number 10 said the number and was shot just like this, everybody understood. And for example, my grandmother had number 10. But probably everyone started to count what number they got, right? And probably the lady next to her counted, because of being nervous, in the wrong way. And probably she was sure that she's number 10, because in the very last moment, she jumped into the other side of my grandmother. So she was number 10 in this moment, not my grandmother, and only because of the mistake of this woman, my grandmother survived. Please be careful, because I think this car is leaving. Okay, they are just taking something. Yes, so we can. But apart from family tragedies, this situation shows us too that a lot of people in this circle, in actions like this, had nothing in common with some organized actions to help the Jews, right? Because, for example, my grandmother supposed to be killed, but she probably didn't help, at least in organized way, the Jewish community from her city. So that's why not everyone, even if felt that it's something appropriate to help the Jewish community, they weren't ready to do it because they were so afraid because of actions like this. Here we have some original buildings, and I would like to show you this one with this house. Yes, exactly. So you can cross, because here we've got the building I would like to show you. So here we've got the building with a lot of holes after the bullets. It has nothing in common with the liquidation of the ghetto, for example, but with the end of the Nazi occupation in the city. Because exactly on the 18th of January 1945, the Soviet army came here to Krakow and they attacked the Nazi soldiers. And it was a huge action against the Nazi people made by Soviets, and during this day, 18th of January 1945, it was destroyed by a lot of bullets.
The chairs. Jewish people used to come and sit in the square.
We have opportunity to warm up. Shows us these chairs and this square with very important commemoration. But before talking about the chairs, I would like to say something about Tadeusz Pankiewicz, this pharmacist from the picture. So please notice this building of one floor in front of us, in the opposite side of the square. So that's the original building of his pharmacy, so-called Under the Eagle Pharmacy. And Tadeusz Pankiewicz was the only non-Jewish person who had special official permission to live in the ghetto, because at the beginning Nazi people were very afraid of typhus, and they were sure that every Jew is sick on that, so that's why they let him stay here. But then they really wanted to get rid of him from the ghetto, but he started to use a lot of tricks to stay here and help the inhabitants of this zone. So he was the person who smuggled a lot of things, at the beginning to the friends, but later to almost everyone from the ghetto, because as we mentioned, all these basic things like food, medicine were very, very limited. So he used to smuggle all this, and also a lot of things related, for example, to religion. In the basement of his pharmacy, he created the space where Jewish people could celebrate every Shabbat, every other important religious day, and in one moment he decided to make very detailed documentation about the situation in this ghetto. So he smuggled the camera and he started to take the pictures of situations that took place on the square. Because here, Nazi people very often organized this kind of the actions we talked about from my hometown, and his windows were in front of all this. So he took a lot of pictures, and a lot of people from the ghetto used to visit him to tell him about the cruel stories, situations from their houses. So he made a lot of notes, and because of his documentation, after the war, a lot of Nazi people had their process in the court, and some of them, among them Amon Get, the one responsible for the liquidation of the ghetto, were killed here. Because of all this he had done to this inhabitants of the ghetto, Jewish people from Israel also gave him this very symbolical title, righteous among the nations. That was given to every non-Jewish person who helped the Jews a lot. So they also appreciated very, very much what he had done to this community. And he was the person who wrote this book we mentioned at the beginning and near the picture. So if you are interested, the title, English title is Pharmacy in Krakow's Ghetto or Krakow's Ghetto Pharmacy. But these three words, Krakow Ghetto and Pharmacy, are keywords here. And English version can be found also every day actually in the building of his pharmacy. Can you see? In front of us we have the doors and kasa written. So kasa means ticket office in Polish because this building right now is the museum. So we can also visit his pharmacy to see how it was organized. You can read a lot, you can see a lot of pictures, and you can get the book in Polish and English. In some other languages versions, it's also available, although not every day, in this Popper synagogue. So just in case you can remember, it's not easy to read the book, but it's also very, very recommended if you are interested in this period of the history, because it can give us very wide perspective. And right now, I would like to say something about the chairs. It's very symbolical commemoration of the Jewish people killed during occupation from in Krakow or from Krakow, but in the camps. We actually can find some other interpretations than one, the most famous one, that says that during the liquidation of the ghetto, Nazi people started to destroy every Jewish house. And they started to throw all the furnitures out of the windows. And as the chairs are not so heavy, so mostly chairs landed here on the square during the liquidation. So it's the most official, most known interpretation of this exposition of the chairs. But for example, in the book of Tadeusz Pankiewicz, we can read about one situation that we can also relate to the chairs, because he said that people from this part of the ghetto received before the liquidation information that everyone right now has to go to the east, but nothing more. Nobody understood what means this is. If it's the other Polish city, maybe the other country. But as they received this kind of information, they prepared their suitcases and they came here. Because when right now we have this metal installation and it's the tram stop, in this moment of the existence of the ghetto, that was the train stop. And from here, the trains and some other vehicles used to take people to Plaszów labor camp. So to wait, because everyone knew that the station and the train usually is so small here that probably everybody has to wait for a long time to enter the train. So to wait in a more comfortable way, they decided to bring a lot of chairs on the square. But when train came, Nazis said that only people can enter it, and they have to leave everything they brought to the square. So they left the suitcases, they left the chairs, and they entered the train that took them at the beginning to the Plaszów labor camp, and from Plaszów they were taken to Auschwitz, when everybody was killed. Most of these people were killed a couple days after the action. But it is said that all mothers with their kids were taken directly to the gas chambers. So to commemorate also the youngest victims of the Holocaust, behind your back, on this side of the square, we have also small chairs that symbolize the kids. And according to this interpretation, the big chairs symbolize the it is also said that each chair commemorates 1,000 Jews killed from Krakow during the occupation, because the numbers here fit to it, and as there is no one on the chairs and most of them are oriented to Auschwitz, it means that all of these people were killed. We can also see on some of the chairs, most of them actually have some stones on the surface, because Jewish people from Krakow treat them as the monuments, or sometimes even as the graves of these people in the symbolical way. So as we mentioned, stones are the part of this tradition related to the deceased, and that's why usually we can see here a lot of stones.